guys, what's going on? It's Ken Woj back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the three identical strangers, and without further ado, let's get into it. So you might have heard of these three boys, now men, named Eddie Galland, Robert Sheffrin, and David Kelman. When they were young boys, they had been placed in an adoption agency called the Louise Wise Services. These boys did not have any clue that they had twins. In fact, the only siblings these boys knew were the ones already in the family prior to being adopted. So, fast forward 19 years, Bobby, a young, bright, athletic boy, comes to Sullivan County Community College. Keep in mind the year is 1980, this will come in handy later. A young freshman, Bobby, of course, gets his things out of his car and starts walking towards his dorm. Once he gets into the building, he notices people are looking at him funny. Bobby, being a freshman, thought this was unusual, but said nothing about it. Then out of nowhere, a random lady runs up to him and gives him a kiss on the cheek and says, "I've missed you, Eddie." At this moment, Bobby's a little weirded out, but keeps moving towards his dorm. A few moments later, another man across the room yells, "Hey Eddie, how have you been?" Bobby's confused. I can only imagine what was going on in his head at this time. Who are these weird people that keep calling me Eddie? Who's this Eddie guy? So finally, Bobby makes it to his dorm. And at this time, he meets Eddie's best friend. His friend is hysterical, asking questions about what are your hobbies, what are your favorite pack of cigarettes. And Eddie and Bobby arrange a meeting and they meet each other. So they write a story to a publisher about their little how they met, and they get what I like to call small town fame. Another man that lives 2 hours away, named David Kelman, reads about this story. David and his friend read the story together, and David's friend says to David, "You have to be their brother." David, not really convinced, says, let's wait a bit." And so they wait a bit, they get more facts, and David ends up believing that that Bobby and Eddie are his brothers. So they drive 2 hours to Eddie's house, where they meet Eddie, and their mother, or Eddie's mother, actually says that 20 minutes after they met, they were wrestling each other like they'd known each other for their whole entire lives. From earlier on in the story, you might remember Louise Wise Services. Let me give you a background of this agency. It was an agency where the particularly wealthy would take their children to be put up for adoption, and it was a famous service all over the country. Now back to the story. Eddie's parents, even though happy for their boys finding their lost triplets, were infuriated that the company had hidden the fact that Eddie and the two other brothers from them and had set up a meeting with them. All the big men and women heading Louise Wise were at this meeting and actually told their parents that it must have been a filing accident and gave another apology. And the parents were on their way. Eddie's father actually had forgotten his umbrella, and when they reached the ground floor, he realized. So he ran back up, opened the door and slightly to get his umbrella when he noticed that the executives had opened a bottle of champagne and were celebrating. Eddie's father was angry and assumed that they were celebrating a good cover-up. So Eddie's father took his umbrella and went on his way. They realized that they needed lawyers for this case, and the best lawyers at the time had decided to pick up the case. So they were halfway through the investigation when all of a sudden these lawyers refused to continue with the case. The parents were obviously confused and wondered if the Wise service had something to do with these lawyers giving in. They ended up finding out out that the Wise Service had actually made these triplets a part of their study. The head psychologist at Louise Wise refused to say anything more about the matter to the family, but before he died in 2008, he submitted his study to Yale University Archives and actually locked it from being able to open until the year 2066 on purpose, so that everyone involved with the study would have died by then. Leave a comment about why you think the psychologist made the date 2066. What is he hiding? Unfortunately, Eddie had died in 1995 due to suicide caused by severe depression. Bobby and David still talk about their unique story. Some other members of the Wise Company had spoke out and explained to the family that the study was to prove that socioeconomic status does not affect the child's outcome, because Eddie was placed in a home where his father was a teacher and his mother was a nurse. Bobby was placed in a home where both parents were lawyers, and David where his mother was a stay-at-home mom. And David was placed in a home where his father was a factory worker and his mother was unemployed. This story has never really ended due to the fact that there aren't any more living witnesses except for David and Bobby willing to speak to the media, and the psychologist has passed on closing this case until 2066, when David and Bobby are probably going to be dead. I hope you enjoyed this story. I know this gave me the chills the first time I read it. Comment down below what you think the Louise Wise services were hiding. Subscribe to my channel. Peace.